All right, this week, maybe you saw it. Had the popcorn ready, and you're probably bored out of your mind.
No.
Robert Mueller on Capitol Hill testifying for 6 hours, the most highly anticipated testimony in a generation, really. The big takeaways, he says his report does not exonerate the president, that the president can be charged with obstruction after leaving the White House. He also made it a point to mention that his investigation was not a hoax, despite what the president says. And as you can imagine now, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are cherry-picking what they see as the moments that bolster their points. For Democrats looking to impeach the president, they are zeroing in on an exchange in which Mueller said his report does not exonerate the president. Republicans push back, as they spent much of the hearing trying to undercut the investigation, arguing that some of Mueller's investigators were compromised somehow. President Trump spoke after the hearing, taking aim at Mueller himself.
The performance was obviously not very good. He had a lot of problems, but what he showed more than anything else is that this whole thing has been 3 years of embarrassment and waste of time for our country.
A lot of folks conflicted by this, myself included, because I say something like this can be important and not be exciting, but still be important for the public to see and a process for us to go through. How do you come down on this, Kate?
I think that it was important for everyone to see. The challenging part for me was that it was multiple hours of Mueller saying, refer to my report. Yeah. and it's ultimately because all the information that he provided, even during his testimony, was in the report. And so people tried to pry more out of him. But I think because he is professional and because he, is upholding the duty of what he was supposed to do, is he made sure to just keep saying, refer to my report, refer to my report. So I think that we gained about what we did the first time.
I try to keep my opinions out of this as much as I can. Sometimes I fail notably, and I'm about to fail right now. But it downright angered me this week watching it, because as an American citizen, I felt like the Republicans were just trying to find any way to slime the president. The Republicans were trying to find any way to slime Mueller. And I felt like the entire time Russia is back laughing their butts off, thinking, ha, 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 this whole thing has worked. And you had the FBI director this week in an unrelated testimony talk about how Russia is currently trying to undermine us. You had Mueller say it several times. I don't hear anybody talking about that. And we have elections, sure, here locally coming up in the next few months, but then of course the big election next year also came out this past week that evidently Russia infiltrated all 50 states in 2016 when it came to the election. Why aren't we talking about that?
Well, it's an illustration of why I don't want the national public nonsense discourse to come to Charlotte, right? Because we're missing the point.
You do know we're hosting the RNC next year.
I know, but the RNC is a large CRVA-style event. Sure. It's the kind of event that we go after, whatever convention it may be, and it's huge. It's a big thing for us, right? But as far as the Mueller report is concerned, he was told to go and find out if the president had colluded with the Russians. He was not able to determine that the president colluded with the Russians. At that point, that conversation should be over. Right? Now, we do have another issue about Russian interference, which I think is undisputed, but the narrow question of did he collude with them after several years could not be proven. And at that point, to go back and say, well, let's see what else we can do with the stuff that this investigation turned up, strikes me as just politics.
To his point, we've had a 2-year investigation. We've heard from Mueller, both in a press conference and under 6-hour question. At what point did Democrats say, we tried?
Time to stop.
We couldn't get him.
I say work harder. I watched it in its entirety, and of course I'm also someone who watched, when I was in college, the Watergate.
Sure.
I watched Oliver North the hearings, in the late 70s, early 80s. I think my expectations, because I had that history, were different than a lot of people, and I think that the Democrats did a disservice by building this up, given who the person was. I think it was very obvious that Mueller was irritated. He did not want to be there, and he made it very difficult for them. And I think that I think his attitude was, I did my job, now you do your job, but don't use me to do your job. I think they were looking for some big, that he was going to get the public all interested in impeachment, and then they could say, we're going to go forward, but he didn't let that happen.
He didn't want to be a pawn for either side.
He didn't want to be a pawn. He was irritated.
All right, more Flashpoint after this.